Welcome back to the program. With me, David Gazzard and Eamonn Fitzpatrick. Eamonn joining us from Jakarta today. Eamonn, you were there for the presidential inauguration. It's the first change of president in Indonesia, for a decade. What are the implications for Australia's ties with Indonesia?
Yeah, Kieran, we're actually in really, really good shape. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, there was a tremendous friendship already between Anthony Albanese and President Prabowo. Also, Richard Marles. They worked together very closely on the defence front, obviously, and it was Richard Marles in the end who attended, given that the King was back in Australia, which is fantastic. But I think what's really important here is that it's not just the security we're talking about. Some of those key people he's brought in around him, his business circle to advise him. He obviously has his brother, who is a huge player here anyway, Hashim, the co-founder of his party. You move beyond that, people like Eamonn, who is actually the owner of the Brisbane Roar, very, very highly respected business figure, very closely involved in our own invested strategy. And then you've got other people like Dino Vega, George Mantica, not quite household names in Australia, but all of whom have played a really key role in growing that investment relationship between Australia and Indonesia, and who all want to see that thrive. Plus, Jim Chalmers has in a close ally and a partner, the finance minister here, who basically everyone thought was leaving, and she has stayed in her job. And so I know both he and our friends in the US and across Europe, she's inordinately highly regarded. So I think for those reasons, we're actually getting to a point now where there's a really good combination of regional security, regional stability, and a really strong economic focus.
Well, that is good to hear, because it's been one of those relationships that's always been seen to be underdone. David Gazzard, I want to turn to the Queensland election. We had the Sky News Courier Mail People's Forum last night, the last face-to-face chance for the two leaders to take each other on. It looks like Crisafulli will get there. Labor, though, has a little momentum late in the piece with the polls tightening.
Yeah, I think that was probably always going to happen, and it was probably David Crisafulli's worst nightmare, in a way, to be so far out in front in the polls, because you had that sort of feeling among voters that it was a foregone conclusion, so they could register a vote for their local member that they liked, rather than it being a tight race. So you can expect David Crisafulli in the dying days of this campaign to say, hey, this is not done and dusted. If you want to change a government, don't be persuaded to do anything other than vote coalition. So, these things normally tighten up. In the dying days of any campaign, it always ends up being fairly close. So, you'd expect David Crisafulli to get across the line on Saturday. All polls have indicated that, but it could be closer than he would have liked to imagine.
Yes, indeed. After a decade, though, Eamonn, it's difficult for any government of any persuasion to win another one in our system, unless it's the ACT. That's a different kettle of fish. But every other jurisdiction, that's generally the rule, isn't it, Eamonn?
Look, that's exactly right. In Queensland, I was there on Anna Blight's campaign in 2009, where she did hold on, obviously, and became Australia's first popularly elected female premier. And then, of course, I was there in that awful result in 2012, and I think we saw a huge swing there, and then we saw that flip around so quickly again within just 3 years. Campbell Newman losing to Anastasia Palaszczuk. There are some ongoing themes in this campaign, there's no doubt about it. Obviously cost of living is huge. Stephen Miles has done everything he can to try and show his credentials there. There's obviously still this sort of perception around community safety. That's been hard. I think the interesting thing, though, I think David Crisafulli taking so long to get on top of this issue around abortion. What does he support? Where does he sit? I mean, that's really allowed his opponents to sort of do some of the serious undermining, especially in that southeast corner.